value. I've had pictures stolen. I've had my artwork stolen. I've had my video material stolen. I've had my sculptures stolen, my clothes, my personal writings, my newspaper clippings and books and things that I have for my research, my bags, personal things that were unique to me taken. And I remember there would be times I would come back and I know where I put the things that I have. And it would be missing or it would be moved. And I'm like, okay, well, what's going on? Well, sometimes they would steal my stuff. And it was not just my relatives. A lot of people were trying to do stuff. They would steal it, copy from it, and then put it back so it would look like nobody ever did anything. They would steal the key, go into somewhere they were not supposed to be, and put the key back. And when you're talking about how some of this is possible, when you're looking at other families, people can be drugged, people can be injured, people can be medicinally sedated. It can be all kinds of issues that put people into an altered state of mind that make them vulnerable to be taken advantage of. Because when you lose your estate, you're losing a lot of things. You're losing your gender, you're losing your sexuality, you're losing everything, because people can start saying just about anything about you when you're dead. If they find something that they can cause a scandal about, they will. There was a picture that somebody took, for example, in high school. And one of my teammates ran up behind me when I was eating this hamburger, just fooling around, goofing off. And somebody happened to snap the picture right there. And if you look into the picture frame, it looks like this guy was my lover standing behind me, hugging me intimately. And absolutely nothing like that was going on. It just looked like that because somebody wanted to make it appear that way through the lens. Now, in my absence, without being able to explain what took place in that picture, if something were to happen, for example, where I couldn't represent myself, somebody can take a picture like that and scandalize it. And when you're talking about the mass dissemination of modern technology, you can take a person's truth and make the whole life that that person lived become a lie. And so I saw Prince in a very vulnerable position. After he died, people started to emerge. I'm his son, or I'm his daughter, I'm his brother, I'm his sister, or whatever the relationship would have been. And then you have to start giving credence to, okay, now who's credible, who's legitimate, what does the state law say about how we're supposed to disperse his assets in his wake? What is supposed to come as a result of his valuables and the things that defined his life and make him who he is? What system of disbursement do we have in place? And that's part of the reason why a lot of artists get attorneys. You get a lot of things signed into law as your protection, so that if something goes wrong, whether you're living or whether you're dead, you have some defense of what's yours. Somebody can show up and say, well, I didn't write that song. Prince wrote it, or vice versa. Prince didn't write that song, I wrote it. And you've got all of these issues that other people are going to be standing up representing you for, with no real determination about what the intent of the actual content owner and creator was. Okay, so say for example, Prince was in possession of something that was not his, but he designed it, he owned it, he paid for it, he produced it, or whatever. It's his property by law, except somebody else was the content creator, or vice versa. Somebody else has something that belongs to Prince, but they say that they own it and that it wasn't Prince's property. How do you determine who should get what, who owns what, when a person is no longer available to decipher the facts? The whole purpose of making a will, having an estate, and doing all of that stuff in the first place is to make sure that there's some documentation that will validate the intent of the original content creator, the owner of the intellectual property, and what their intentions and the purpose was for what they had in their possession. When somebody leaves us suddenly, when somebody leaves us at a time that was not anticipated, it creates even more tension, because you have to determine who is next in line to disperse this content to. You have children, you have siblings, you have parents, you have friends, you have industry people, you have record labels, you have all of this stuff that can come into play where people are saying, hey, that's mine, or I know something about it. Now, to put this into perspective, I'm going to use myself because I've had a creative background my whole life. And I had a chance to be in just about every part of the industry that you can be in without being in it directly. I've been to every kind of venue. I've been around every kind of artist, and I've seen just about every type of situation come up where somebody is either empowered or they're totally exploited. I mean, I've seen people be taken advantage of so badly that it's almost as if they're dead when they're living because they have been so entrapped by somebody's contract that they would never have an opportunity to act upon their will in the first place because they can't even make a single move until the person that they signed that contract with gives them permission, and sometimes that's an attorney too. I personally have no parents left and no grandparents left. I have a bunch of relatives, cousins, and aunts, uncle, and extended distant relatives. My siblings are the next people that would be in line for possession of something that I have. That would mean like my sisters or my brother or their children, my nephews, my nieces. And I've even been told that I have some step brothers and sisters whom I've never ever met, whom I've never interacted with, whom have never introduced themselves or anything, who could come into play in a situation like this. And I'm not in that situation per se, but if I were in Prince's position, I would have to consider all these things. I have never given my siblings, nor any of my relatives, nor anyone else in my personal relationships or my professional relationships any permission whatsoever to depict me for use in anything, publishing, videos, film, nothing. I retain the rights and ownership of my own person and my intellectual property and my creations. If somebody has something that validates that relationship is different, they will have a mutual signature on something that can prove and validate that was something that both of us concluded and was permitted. And I don't mean the things that have been fraudulently created, where forgery of some kind has taken place. As a matter of fact, in some of my style, I do what I do in a manner where it will be very difficult to commit acts of forgery in the first place. The thing that made Prince so unique and spectacular was that this guy had the ability to do something that was uniquely him. Prince could take us into the unseen levels and dimensions of what art is supposed to be. Prince could take us out of this universe. Prince had the ability to show us things that we would not be able to see on our own, to take us to the depths of emotion, to the depths of life and pleasure and entertainment and love that we can't see visible in front of us. This guy was so incredible that something about him made all of us know him, even the people that would otherwise be against him. My family has stolen quite a bit from me, and so has a lot of my friends. Well, I thought they were friends, my classmates, some people that I've dated, and what have you. As a matter of fact, one female that I dated, I took some artwork to her place because I was sorting out my possessions for some things that I had planned. Out of the blue, she jumps up and creates this sudden disruption and disturbance, and I grabbed my stuff and I left. My plan was to retain the rest of my property and obtain the rest of my property when I was able to without having to be in confrontation with her. Well, she stole my art. One of them included a big picture of a bonnet, of a woman and wearing a bonnet that was from my personal collection. And what she did was took that piece of work and several other things so that she could use it to try to build what she wanted her version of something to be. In the business of news, they're always going to try to make it seem like there are two sides to every story. Here's this person's side, and here's the other person's side. Well, if you have overwhelming evidence to substantiate exactly what you said, the only thing a news organization or a lawyer or a governing body or anybody can do is try to come up with a way to create a probable cause to justify a counter story to make people question the credibility of what you presented in the first place. And the only reason they will be interested in getting the second story in the first place, the other side of the story, the two sides of the story in the first place, is because there's something in between all of it that calls whatever they had done originally or their intentions into question. They're trying to create the element of doubt in the case law system.
What happens is they're trying to create a reasonable doubt. Anybody in the legal procedure, the judge, the district attorney, or any of the parties that are in the court that are trying to determine innocence or guilt, the jury, or what have you, they're doing that on the basis of whether or not someone has created a reasonable doubt for them to consider that those that have been accused may not be at fault. If you are dealing with an attorney, somebody that went to law school, whatever they're doing with you when they're dealing with you is going to be based upon the structure that they learn in the legal system. And they're going to try to always include, even in their personal life, some type of defense for whatever actions that they take, so that they will be able to counter anything that they're accountable for to come up with a reasonable doubt, to call anything that they may be at fault for into question. And what you have to do is use evidence to substantiate that there is no doubt, because there would be no reason to look for probable cause or reasonable doubt in the first place unless something is wrong. I make sure that I limit my contacts specifically. I have not hung in any of their groupings. I have not been invited, nor have I asked to be a part of their little cultures and cliques. I don't owe anybody in this town anything. I have not asked anybody for anything. And so they have no basis whatsoever for even claiming to have knowledge or contact with me unless somebody did something they were not supposed to be doing in the first place. And so the question is, what's really going on? I come from a community that does collective investments, where they exploit the public domain and the eminent domain to overwhelm people and take advantage of their lives. So they can come together as a group so that no one specific person will be accused or responsible for doing something that everybody invested in, because it would be too difficult to litigate against a group versus an individual or a small sector of people. But if anybody's trying to do anything with that, with something that they have obtained without permission, that they plan to gain from at the expense of somebody who did not give them that permission, they are at fault. And so they go into this collective character assassination intended to disparage you in such a way that they can come up with a way to manufacture the other side of that story. The other side of that story is going to come from the press. It's going to come from people they claim were witnesses, people that came into contact with you, people that they said knew you. But all of that can be overwhelmed by evidence, because people can come together collectively for a group lie. And if you can show that a collective of people have come together against somebody they don't really know in the ways they're claiming, to try to evade accountability for an absolute violation of somebody's person, their